Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Not Your Average Bucket List by Only in Your State. This week, we're celebrating National Park Week. I'm here with my co host, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Marissa, how are you?
Doing well. Very excited about National Park Week and Only in Your
Yes.
State. This is kind of like a holiday for Only in Your
Yeah,
State.
it is. Yeah.
So, yeah, we have tons of new content being rolled out across the website, socials, and now a podcast episode. For you personally, what does National Park Week mean?
So, wow, big question. Actually like growing up and up until like a few years ago, I really didn't think much about the national parks. Not because I didn't know them or wasn't interested. It's just like I don't know. It just like wasn't in my worldview. I didn't think about it. I grew up having one close to me, and I went to it multiple times. It just never struck me at how important it is. So before it didn't mean much, but now I want to like it's like part of my personal to-do list in life. I want to hit all the
Mm.
national parks. I want to explore what there is to explore. I wish I could be in the junior ranger program, all the things. How about you?
Yeah, no, same. I think it wasn't that big of a deal growing up. I would do like over summer break and whatnot. My grandparents would take my sister and I to different museums and
Yeah.
more localized parks. We went to a fish hatchery once just to
Oh,
kind
that's
of
cool.
like, keep the learning going.
Yeah.
But in New Jersey, there weren't a lot of national parks within that area that, we could go to on a day trip. So it really wasn't like that big of a deal growing up. But now as an
Yeah.
adult, I am all about it.
I do think it's part of the once you like get past 30, you're going to start caring about birds. You want to go to the national parks. Loving naps, I think it's just part of
After what? 30, you said?
yeah, like once
Oh,
you hit your
okay.
30s, then you
Yeah,
start like
yeah.
you're going to wake up one day and be like, "Huh, I like birds." And then on my 35th birthday, I had a ranger hat. I was like, "What?"
Oh my god. Okay, so just curious what happens after 40, asking for a friend.
I think okay, 40. Maybe more antiquing, which is not a bad
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Love antiquing and thrifting. I just think
Cool.
like you up your skill once you hit 40.
Nice. Okay. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely I think I'm behind the what is it behind the buck? Behind the I don't know.
Curve?
I got to get into birds, I guess, cuz I missed my mark there, but
I mean, look,
yeah.
I'm just now doing it. It's easy to get into. You can get that was it the ornithology app, that Cornell
Oh,
Ornithology, and then you can
nice.
record. So you know what? On upcoming trips, take out that app, and if you hear a bird, it'll record it and it'll say like, "This is the bird you hear," which is great.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
different experience compared to my grandparents' bird watching, which really was just like a very faded book that they carried around
Yeah.
and circled across
A
the
book,
fall.
some binoculars. Yeah.
Now you can record a sound and be like, oh my gosh, that's the purple throated, I don't know,
Yep.
warbler. Um,
You got it.
Very cool. Okay. So I wanted to kick off this episode with a couple of trivia questions for you.
Mm,
You know how I love a curveball.
I do.
You probably know these answers already, I would assume, but
Mm.
no pressure. Okay, so in honor of National Park Week, what is the largest national park in the United States?
By square footage,
Uh, Acreage.
acreage. Oh, I guess acreage would make sense. um, uh, I bet you it's. I wanted to say something out west, but I bet you it's like in Alaska. There's a lot of space in Alaska.
Look
Um,
at you.
uh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know the name. Is it an Alaska National Park?
Yes,
Which
it
one?
is. Alaska's Wrangell St. Elias
Oh, all
National
right.
Park and Preserve. It's 13.2 million acres. It's larger than Yellowstone, Yosemite, and Switzerland combined.
What a weird addition to that fact.
Right.
Okay. All right. Cool. Didn't expect that.
Nice. Great
All right. I have a
guess.
trivia
Okay.
question for you, actually.
Oh no. Is it about Alaska?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay.
What is the most visited national park?
Um okay, I feel like I know this one. because I've been to it. And I want to say it's someplace like Appalachian, maybe
You're warm. Yep.
ish. Crap, I don't remember.
Great Smoky Mountain.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I
You're
have been
right.
there before.
Yeah. See, we're so
We talked
smart.
about that, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
um
probably.
yeah. So, yeah, Great Smoky Mountains. That was a great park. Beautiful. And I've been to it twice too. Also, Appalachian. How do you pronounce it Appalachian, right?
Oh, so yeah, I'm one of those like dirty Midwesterners that probably don't say it right. I say Appalachian a lot. I know like the
Appalachian.
pronunciation that it should be is like Appalachian. Yeah.
I've been hearing two people say Appalachian, which I'm like, that can't be right.
I feel like the most true is Appalachian, and then
Yeah,
Appalachian I feel is like me, is like, it's not quite right, but
right.
I mean, I grew up in
Okay.
the foothills. I was in Appalachia,
So,
but not like West Virginia,
yeah.
Tennessee sort of
Okay.
Appalachia. So I don't
Okay.
even know
So
what
I have one more trivia question that's going to segue into our episode officially. What was the
okay.
very first national park?
That I've been to or
No, the very first
in
ever,
existence.
ever.
Oh, harder. I guess it wouldn't be trivia. That'd be a personal question. um, very first. I am going to guess something on the East Coast. Mm, gosh, Shenandoah.
No.
Oh, what is it?
Yellowstone. Eight-
Really?
1872.
You
Yeah.
know, I feel like so at Only in Your State, we had a great national park ranger come on and talk to us about the civilian corps and like the building of the national park system. And yeah, it was out what? Should have
Close.
known.
Yeah.
Should have known.
But I do think so in terms of history, going back to 1800s, early 1900s. So Yellowstone became a national park. It was the first national park in the 1870s, but the National Park Service itself, right, wasn't established until like early 1900s.
Yeah. Wasn't Roosevelt responsible for
I think it was
the
Woodrow
creation?
Wilson.
Oh, was it? What was
Signed the
the maybe
Organic
I'm thinking of
Act.
the civilian, hold on, civilian corps.
Hmm.
You know what? Let's take time to plug. Go to our YouTube channel at Only in Your State and look up this park ranger video that we
Oh,
had. We
yeah.
haven't recorded, and we had a really great session on it. Civil Corps.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm thinking. So the Civilian Conservation Corps in 1933 was established by Roosevelt. Roosevelt, but yeah, not the actual
Okay.
creation of the parks.
Okay. So 1916, Woodrow Wilson signed the Organic Act, which created the National Park Service. And the point of this was to conserve the natural and cultural areas within the country for future generations to enjoy, which to me, gotta love that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's such a big deal that now there is an annual celebration called National Park Week, which we are focusing on today, that typically takes place every year in April, coincides with Earth Day, which I think is very cool.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of stuff that is offered in these national parks during this week, which
Yes.
I didn't know until I just thought, oh, National Park Week, they're highlighting the national parks, and you get in for free
Mm-hmm.
to every and any national park in America. But they actually have things going on throughout the week.
Yeah, there are special events. Yeah, and the free admission, I think it's just one day, correct? There's like a free admission day to any national park. Um,
Okay, just one
uh,
day.
bec- yeah, because I don't think it's the entire week, but
Okay.
yeah. So April 20th, National Park Week, Saturday, the entrance fees will be waived. So this
Oh,
Saturday,
happy
April
birthday!
20th, it is. I'm gonna
Are
just
you
have to tromp around a national park.
for
It's
free?
look, I already have plans and it's free.
Yeah,
Amazing.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the very first National Park Week started, believe it or not, in 1991. So this
Wow, that
isn't this.
recent.
Yeah, this isn't even like
Okay.
a super historic weekly celebration. But in 1991, it actually marked the 75th anniversary of the National Park
Mm.
Service, and then they skipped a couple years. The next one wasn't until 1994. But ever since then, 94, it's become an annual celebration. And now today, people love it. They will go to a national park during this
Yeah.
week to check out all the park related events that are going on.
I do love that, like, I know I joke about it, but the evolution of the Junior Ranger program and getting kids like, if I was a kid and there was, like, such a focus on the Junior Ranger program, I probably would've been way more into it, but, like, there's even
Yeah.
a Junior Ranger Day during National Park Week. So, yeah, it's, getting kids interested, and there are all different kinds of events, so if you live near a national park or, take interest in one of the ones we talk about today, it's definitely worth doing, like,
Yeah.
no reason not to.
I agree because I also, whenever I visit a national park, it always surprises me with even just, gosh, like our episode on when I went to Hobe Sound and the Jonathan Dickinson State Park. There was so much to do, I couldn't even fit it in. That's like
Yeah,
a, a week long thing to check out a state park like that. But national park, there are so many opportunities for you to go hiking, for you to possibly go swimming,
yeah,
kayaking, camping, which is my favorite. But there's so much to do, and then you have like these little pockets of like cultural significance, ranger led tours. Uh,
yeah.
it's just really neat. I've never had a bad time at a national park. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I really love how passionate people are. I know we talked about park rangers before, but whenever I have interfaced with any national park ranger, they are always so well educated, so helpful, very respectful. They take the parks very seriously and the laws about, maintaining the parks, taken like pack in, pack out kind of stuff. Um, but I just love like you can get a wealth of information just by going into a visitor center, talking to the park rangers. The NPS has an amazing app where you can like track all your parks, your visited parks, your favorited ones. So yeah, it's really accessible now, which is great.
Yeah, and I think also we should mention the National Parks Pass, which you pay an annual rate, and
Yep.
that gets you into a good bulk of these parks. And also, it's not just parks either. You also have these like historic battlefields and like national seashores and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's not just like a national park; it's the national park system, which includes all these other places.
Yeah, there's actually one really close to me, aside from the park, but a National Historic Landmark, which is the National First Ladies Monument, I think. And it's like
Huh.
I used to live like down the block from it, and I didn't even realize it was part of
Oh,
the national park system. Um,
cool.
and yes, it's just really cool. And I'll see them with their little like pamphlets and stuff during like locals farmers markets. And for some reason, I just never realized it's yeah, it's part of the MPS system, which is
Oh,
really cool.
wow. Very
Yeah,
neat. Okay, so before we segue into our favorite national parks that we've been to, I just want to add in. We recently spoke to some of our colleagues from Only in Your State. They shared with us their favorite national parks, which I love listening to other people talk about their favorite national parks, especially when it's ones that are on my list and I've never been to. So we're just going to share those with you right now.
Hey, my name is Megan Chute, and I'm the manager of editorial at Only in Your State. And my current favorite national park is Shenandoah National Park. This park is like 75 miles south of Washington, D.C., where I live, and it features all of my favorite things: sprawling mountain views and a winding road with endless viewpoints and some cool waterfalls, and the best fall foliage in like September, October timeframe. My favorite thing to do is just like drive along Skyline Drive and stop wherever we feel like it. But if you can only do one hike, I really like Doyle's River Falls.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm Senior Manager of Content Operations for Only in Your State, and my favorite national park is Cuyahoga Valley National Park. It's a really unique national park in that there's no entrance fee to go there. It's the town of Peninsula is situated inside the park, so hundreds or thousands of cars drive through that park every day. I often drive through it when we're on our way to Cleveland. It's about 30 minutes south of Cleveland, so it's really accessible and easy to get to. And it's got some really cool features. Brandywine Falls is beautiful, and we get a lot of rain here in Ohio. So after a rainstorm, the waterfall is just amazing, just tons of water crashing down. It's really fun. There's a boardwalk that you take some staircases down, and then you're right almost on top of that waterfall. So if you like waterfalls, that's a great one to visit. The other really cool feature that I visit multiple times a week is the Beaver Marsh. And the Beaver Marsh used to be an old auto junkyard. Sierra Club came in and cleaned it up back in the 70s, early 80s. And when they cleaned out all the cars and everything, some beavers took up residence, built a dam, and flooded the whole thing. So now it's this really cool marsh area. You can go and see turtles, and there's great blue herons, which also have a nesting site really close to that beaver marsh, which I highly recommend visiting in the spring. You can see the baby herons in their nests. But the beaver marsh has, you'll see snakes and turtles and all kinds of birds, just tons of wildlife. And you can walk out on a boardwalk right over the marsh and kind of just be enveloped by all of it. It's a really, really accessible national park. You don't have to worry about big crowds. You don't have to worry about long lines or traffic, anything like that. And like I said, it's free to visit. So that's definitely my favorite park and a place I love. So I hope you like it too.
Hi, my name is Meg, and I'm the engagement editor for Only in Your State. My favorite national park is Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island of Hawaii. I was lucky enough to visit this park earlier this year, and I was so impressed by the beauty and magnitude and just incredibly unique terrain here. The views of the main crater from the overlook are beautiful, but my favorite part was hiking the Kilauea Iki Trail. It's only about 4 miles long, and it takes you down into the crater of Kilauea Iki and across an ancient lava lake. So you get a little bit of the jungle and then just this barren, amazing landscape that's so unlike anything I've ever seen. If you go, I suggest going a little later in the day. We timed ours just perfectly, so there were not very many people on the trail at the time, and we felt totally alone in this massive volcano. It was so cool.
Okay, so are you going to touch on your favorite national park in the list? Should I not spoil it, or do you want to add what yours is straight away?
I could add mine. I'm gonna add my favorite one because it's also one that I went to most recently.
Okay, great.
I
Yeah.
think this might surprise you because I feel like you're gonna think that I'm gonna say Big Bend because I've talked about it so much.
You have.
I'm like a Big Bend spokesperson now,
Yeah.
unofficially. So I'm waiting for my application to be approved.
Ooh,
But
fingers crossed.
so I'm going to talk about Joshua Tree National Park first because I went there back in October. It was my maybe second or third time going, and I absolutely love this park. It's located in southeastern California. It is known for its desert landscapes and these beautiful rock formations, and obviously the iconic Joshua Tree, which, if you've never seen it, do a quick Google. These trees are gorgeous. I love this park, and I hope to go every couple of years because I just love a desert landscape. We've talked about this before. There's something so beautiful. Maybe it's because I grew up on the East Coast and it was like trees galore.
Totally understand that. Yeah. It's so different.
Yeah,
It's novel. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and just I love cacti. It's just that's probably one of my favorite plants ever. And then you have like great stargazing too at night. Everything
Yeah.
there's not a lot of light pollution, which I love. You can see the
Yeah.
stars and yeah.
That's great.
So yes, Joshua Tree would be my number one. What's your number one?
Yeah, you took me by surprise. All right. Ooh, you know what? I think it might just be recency bias, but am going to say one that I visit also in October. So Sequoia National Park, and I'm going to touch on it later in our list, but for so many similar reasons to you, like I grew up with the East Coast, biome and that area, and to see something so otherworldly, different, giant, historic, meaningful made me feel so small and so insignificant, but
Mm.
in like a good way.
Yeah.
I'm processing it, but still it's one of those places, I think, and I'm assuming, maybe Redwood is very similar, that people
Mm.
need to visit, and your breath's going to be taken away. So yeah,
Yeah.
Sequoia, I would say. I don't want to say too much because we're going to get to it, but definitely.
Yeah. Redwoods is on my list too as one of my favorites because exactly like you said, these massive trees will just it's very like I don't want to say it's like an out of body experience because that sounds kind of like, I don't know. It's just like a very magical moment to be standing next to
Yeah.
this tree that has lived how many years, and it's just these massive trunks and these giant branches, and you're
So
just like,
giant. Yeah.
it's crazy. You do feel so small in comparison, and it kind of, you're reconnecting with a part of nature that I feel as if not a lot of people get to do.
Yeah.
We're so far removed from nature in a lot of aspects of our society that when you're standing there in front of these trees, you like tap into something that like you probably have never experienced before.
And it's so bigger than you. And it's one of those things that, when we say old growth, we mean old growth trees, like
Yeah.
thousands of years old. And so it just makes you realize how you're just a small part of a bigger picture. And honestly, I feel like walking around those parks made me realize, like, oh God, I need to stop driving a car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it makes you really think about your impact on the world. Also, if you're a Star Wars fan, it's like Endor. So,
Hmm.
I think they did do filming locations in like the redwoods and different parks
Yes,
like that.
they
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, if you want to jump into, I would love to hear about your experience at Sequoia because that
Yeah.
is on my list, and I know you've been there, so I would love to hear you share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we went to Sequoia and part of Kings Canyon. They are adjacent to each other. So usually whenever you take a trip there, you're gonna be hitting both. Um, but we stayed in the Waksuki Lodge, and that is inside the park, which was lovely because there were trailheads actually attached to this place. And so whenever we started driving in, it was actually a really unique experience because in October 2023, they were controlling the rabbit fire that just, and it was actually it wasn't a controlled fire like they typically do on a schedule, but it was basically a natural fire they just used to their advantage because they were scheduled for a controlled burn sometime in the future. And that area, the acreage hadn't seen a burn like that in, I want to say, like hundreds of years, but it was
Wow.
something to where like it really needed it. So driving in wasn't what I expected because there's all charred trees. But what's so interesting about sequoias and trees of that biome is that they so desperately need it because they withstand it. It clears out the forest floor and it helps their seeds grow and
Mm.
take, which I think historically, before the national parks kind of wised up to it, they were stopping fires, which was actually hurting the growth of these trees and forests, which I thought was really
Mm.
interesting.
Wow.
Um, so anyway, yeah, it was just absolutely gorgeous. So once we get past that and all the like seeing like the firefighters work and what they were doing, which is really fascinating, actually, like just walking around with like gas cans and blow torches and stuff. It was
Oh
it
my
was great.
gosh.
Would not envy that job. It looks so freaking hard.
Yeah.
But basically we go in and we went to the giant forest giant trail and big tree and General Sherman, and these are like General Sherman is like the biggest. So
Yeah.
seeing that straight away as soon as you get in the park was just jaw dropping.
Mm.
I could not get over it. And they're so well manicured too because a lot of these trails are paved and safe and they want to keep people on the trail and away from the giant sequoias. And it was just the most lovely experience, very quiet. It was an off season when we went in October, but still like really great weather. So yeah, every time I saw a sequoia, I was just like jaw on the floor. So like I was just walking around like
Right.
completely
Yeah.
overwhelmed. It was amazing. I loved it. And honestly, all of the like little placards and things. I'm the person at the museum where I'm just like reading all the little things and I just want to
Me
know. So
too.
like all of the posted signage was just amazing inside of the park and you learn so much about the process and how some of the youngest trees were just giant, not monarchs yet, but still hundreds of years old, and here I am 35 being like, oh gosh, I'm getting up there. you know um so yeah, it was lovely. I would highly recommend Sequoia. um
Cool.
it's just, yeah, it's beautiful, like
And
another
I
world.
remember you saying you went with your nephews,
I
right?
did,
So would
yes.
you say this is like a super kid friendly kind of park?
I will say that, yeah. I mean, obviously, with any park you go to and you're looking at the trails, you have to note the like difficulty level. Is it an out and back? Is it a loop? We went on the Tacopa Falls Trail, which is like considered an easy out and back where there's like a waterfall. But I will say, kids are kids and they don't want to stay on the path. They were not
Yeah.
interested in the paved paths, the easy walks. They just wanted to be, climbing on rocks and almost hitting their heads and jumping over logs. So that being said, it was pretty the trails we went on were family friendly, and like some of the most iconic ones, very accessible, very family
Mm.
friendly. But I will say the Congress Trail, which is the one that like goes through all the like the they name the trees after like the Senate and the House and like all these historical figures.
Hmm.
It was quite a elevation change. So if you're used to like going up and down hills, or you're a walker or runner, it's not bad. But the kids did not appreciate it, and they're
Mm.
like little kids that are outside playing and they're fairly fit, and they were struggling. um
Right.
so just a fair warning, there are lots of benches. Use them. They even have signs
Yeah.
like take your time, don't push yourself, because it's a really challenging walk.
Yeah, and I feel like anything with a crazy elevation change, you don't realize till you're like halfway up, and
Yeah,
it's just like, whew, I need a break, you know? Well, especially just like altitude and stuff. But
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
that's cool though. Yeah, that
Mhm.
that Sequoia is definitely on my list. For sure, I would love to check that one
Yeah.
out.
It was a sleeper park for me. If you would have asked me before last year, I wouldn't have named it, but I was absolutely wrong. It's crazy good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, in similar vein, so Redwoods National and State Parks in Northern California. I was lucky enough to go before the crazy fires
Hmm.
that were in the area, which it's very, very lucky that I was able to do that. Because again, as we said, just these trees in this particular park, these towering redwood trees are some of the tallest living organisms on the entire planet.
Yeah.
And like, what a cool claim to fame, And I think that's like part of why I love Northern California so much, and Pacific Northwest is just like, these giant, ancient, giant trees,
Yeah.
and old growth forests. I just think are super neat. And
Yeah.
we did just like a basic hike through, which you start at the visitor center and just go around in a loop. I think it was like maybe a mile and a half, less than 2 miles. It was a loop, and it was beautiful. I
Yeah.
feel like you first of all, the drive up to or into the park is a little intense. I don't know if things have changed now after the fires. I'm assuming that they have tremendously. But the drive to the I was in an RV at the time, and the drive to the park was crazy. Just up these winding roads, down these winding roads,
Yeah.
like
I mean, I didn't
nuts.
even go all the way up to that park, but we were at Golden Gate and we wanted to go to some of the park properties across the bridge. And, we were in a rented van, but I'm like, oh, I am white knuckling a
Yeah.
little bit. Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be like quite the hike, but I think that's why it took us so long to get to the park, that we only had enough time to like go to the visitor center and do the one
yeah.
short loop. Because we didn't want to be driving those roads at night. We weren't camping.
That is one thing to note about any of these national parks, because it is remote. Take it seriously. These aren't just easy
Yeah.
jaunts. And if there is warnings about winter and weather, please pay attention to them. I was speaking to some
Yeah.
folks that were in outside of Yosemite. They just lived in a little town that was real close. And I was like, yeah, what was your biggest complaint about tourists? Because that's all there is coming in and out. They're like, they do
Mm.
not listen to weather warnings, and
Yeah.
they will crash into us who live here and we're used to it and we chain our tires, but they do not. So,
Mm.
take it seriously.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely second that. Um, yeah, and that was pretty much my experience in Redwoods. I think it's a really beautiful. I want to say like I don't know if you remember. Is it like an hour and a half outside of San Francisco? Like an hour from the bridge,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
ish. Yeah, but
It's
beautiful drive.
It's close enough to drive, but yeah, if you're like
Yeah.
flying into San Francisco, it's not just like an easy hop across the bay or something. So it's gonna take
Yeah.
some time.
Yeah. Yeah, but that one that was one of my favorites. I do love those redwood trees.
24 hours later.
Okay, so next up, I have some stuff from the east. So I'm gonna be going over things I've gone to, and I just wanted to start with maybe the more like little known, or maybe not as I don't know, just not as like fancy and famous as some of the other ones. So
Okay. Love
I'm
that.
gonna start off with New River Gorge National Park in West Virginia.
Cool.
Um, it is gorgeous in the middle of Appalachia or Appalachia. um, and it is just, one of those scenic drives you can go through. There's, whitewater rafting, lots of hiking, lots of stops you can pull over, historic towns that you can go through nearby, like Thurman, West Virginia. I know that we've covered before, and one of our editors visited herself. But it's just a really cool park, and the Gorge Bridge. I don't know how you are with bridges. I am terrible with bridges. I am
Mm,
panicked. I am sweating profusely. But I will say it's a gorgeous, gorgeous view. You go across the New River Gorge on this giant steel bridge, and it's just an incredible view. And then from the other side, there are a bunch of lookout points. So yeah, I think it's to me it's kind of a hidden gem. Like I feel like if people are traveling from across the country, they might not realize it's such a beautiful spot. Um but yeah, that was my first I thought that people should pay attention to.
cool. I've never been to West Virginia. I know that I've driven
Oh, really?
through, I'm sure. Yeah, I've never spent a lot of
I
time
feel like you
there.
had to have like
I don't know. I know we talked about it in our local lore and legends season,
yeah,
um, right? Because that's
spooky.
a big cryptid
It
area.
is. Yeah.
I don't know. There are just some states I feel like if I had to, I would say I have three states that kind of just, if I were doing a quiz on naming all 50 states, I would always forget them. And West Virginia is like kind of one of them. No offense to anybody
No,
from West
I
Virginia.
mean,
I don't know why it just doesn't like stick in my brain.
yeah. It's Yeah, I mean, look, it's not necessarily a giant state. I feel like, and it's just kind of like tucked in between a couple. So I can see why maybe some people don't think about it,
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know what it's just what's that song? What is it? John Denver, West Virginia.
Country roads.
Yeah, country.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. I still sing that and I know the lyrics, but yeah.
You're just a liar then.
Yeah, right.
Oh
Cool. Okay.
man.
West Virginia, New River Gorge. That's
Yes.
awesome. I am going to speak about one that is in Florida, which I think everybody should go visit, whether or not are afraid of alligators. Everglades National Park. This is a big one, and I just think this park is so unique, especially to Florida. Talk about only in Florida. Everglades is giant, first and foremost. It
Yes.
is just acres and acres of beautiful mangroves, and you have trails, you have biking trails. A lot of it is kayaking and boating, and
Mhm.
there's so much natural beauty. There's a lot of like ecological significance of the area as well, because
Yeah.
this is one of the largest tropical wilderness areas in the country,
Yep.
which I
Yeah.
think is
I
so cool.
Preparing, not on purpose, but over the weekend, I listened to a podcast about the Everglades. So I'm really excited that you're talking about it on the list.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah,
a giant area, and even the national
it
park,
is.
it's not even all of the Everglades. It is just a tiny
Right.
portion.
Yeah, and there really is a lot to do. I've been there personally. I've biked Shark Valley before. I've hiked some of the trails. There's one thing that we've written about on Only in Your State that I'm dying to do. It's like throughout the park, they have these little raised docks. I think they're called chicky huts.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah,
entirely sure. Okay. So it's
yeah,
like, and you take this guided tour with somebody for, 24 hours, 48 hours, however brave you're feeling. And you kayak around, and then you set up your tents on these raised chicky huts, and
yeah.
you like spend the night in the Everglades, which is, I don't know why it doesn't scare me. It's something I really want to do. Um,
Look, I don't
But
wanna wake up in the middle of the night and shine a flashlight and just see eyes. Like, that's a ooh, you're braver
but
than
can
I am.
alligators can't really climb, right? Or
Do
can
I wanna
they? Am
test
I?
that?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question because we have iguanas here, and I didn't know that they could climb until one got stuck in my gutter, which that's a story
Oh,
for another time.
no.
But
Yeah.
no, it was fine. He
Okay.
got out safely. But
I
yeah, I don't know why alligators don't freak me out. I hate snakes. So like the whole python thing that they have going on in the Everglades right now, where people are releasing their snakes and they grow up to be these monsters. That freaks me out. But I don't know why alligators don't. I'm
maybe
underestimating them, right?
I think you're underestimating them. They're
Yeah.
fast. They're
Right.
gonna take you underwater, and at least in
Yeah.
the Everglades, there's not that much water. There are a lot of places where it's like 5 inches, and it's
Yeah.
just like a field of sawgrass growing up through the water. So you might be able to
Yeah.
be okay, not gonna drown you. But
Yeah.
no, I think it's such an interesting part of the country and the specific biomes that are all together in the Everglades and
Yeah.
how it's even formed because there's like a ridge running through Florida that's like 20 feet above sea level, but it's still what's one of the boundaries of the Everglades is this like, I forget what it's called, what ridge specifically, but I thought that was so interesting that that's just one of the things that keep the Everglades in place. Um,
That's cool. I didn't know that.
yeah. So,
Neat.
so you are gonna camp on one of those, I could, what's it called? The
Chicky Hut?
yeah,
Yeah.
and, not get eaten
I
by
hope
an
so.
alligator.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
do love
hope.
me some mangroves. They are the most
I know.
fascinating tree. I am just blown away every time.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah, so highly recommend the Everglades. I actually have been considering, since it's National Park Week and you can get in for free, going to the Everglades next
Yeah.
Saturday just to kind of do like a couple fun trails. But again, we'll see. Might be packed. Who
Would
knows?
you
But
ever
yeah,
do a, like a fan boat tour?
I would. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
why. Like that, it doesn't like alligators don't freak me out. I feel like they should for all of my, you know, things. But yeah, I would do. Would you do? Have you done a fan boat tour?
no, I haven't. The mechanical aspect, like, I feel like it'd be very loud and disruptive to be on a fan boat, both to me
Yeah.
and the natural wildlife. Like, it's
Right.
not exactly like quiet things, but also, I played enough video games to know that swamps are dangerous, and if that
Yeah.
breaks down in the middle of it, what am I gonna do?
That's a
So,
very good point.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I would do it. Maybe we make that an episode. Marissa steps out of her comfort zone and
Oh my god, we gotta get you a
you know,
GoPro, just, like, strap it to your chest and see your adventures through the Everglades. I'd love that.
that would be fun. Hear me shrieking every time I see a snake bigger than 12 inches.
Marissa in the wild, scared
Yeah.
silly. I love it.
Oh boy.
Okay, so the next park I'm gonna talk about is, one we already mentioned, but it is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and this is in North Carolina and Tennessee, and I know we already talked about the fact that it is the most visited park, the national park, which is shocking to me, not because it's not beautiful and worth visiting, but I just assumed it would have been something like the Grand Canyon, which might be number 2. But,
Mm,
that's really
yeah.
cool that the Great Smoky Mountains is so beloved by people
Yeah.
and maybe just accessible. Like, there's so many states that you can get to Great Smoky Mountains pretty easily. Um,
Mm,
and I Fun fact, this park is home to over 1,500 types of flowering plants that bloom year round. You can do a
wow.
spring wildflower pilgrimage each year, and there's a festival with walks and hikes so you can learn about flowers,
That's
which is
awesome.
really cool. But yeah, it's a huge park. It like I said, it's in North Carolina and Tennessee on the border, and it is just prime once again prime Appalachian culture and beauty.
Yeah. I remember camping there. It was great. I drove the RV in. It was like 10 to 15 bucks a night, which was amazing. First come, first serve. I don't remember exactly what campground I was in, but I just remember it being exceptionally quiet
Mhm.
and really beautiful. And from the campground, there were a lot of trailheads that you could just like wake up
Yes, yeah.
and go on a hike, which I loved.
I feel like the trail density for that park is really great because it's not like you
Yeah,
have to go way out of the way to find a trailhead, and ones that are all difficult or dangerous. So I think that is really appealing.
yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. Great ad and also fun trivia fact that we covered.
Thanks.
Um, so no surprise, I'm going to talk about Big Bend because I just feel like it's required. Every podcast episode we record, I have to, as the unofficial spokesperson, talk about
Yeah,
Big
we need like a
Bend.
little sponsor bell. Big Bend
We do.
National Park.
Yeah. So I was gonna cover actually because I Big Bend is I was just talking about this park to Madison, who's on our team, Only in Your State team. She's in the socials department, social media, and she was asking me what my favorite park was, and she actually said to me, "I heard it's Big Bend," and I was like, "Oh, so good news travels
Word gets
fast."
around.
Um, but yeah, so I was talking to her about the park and explaining why I love it because, which I've said before, there are different ecosystems. There's a desert because also this is in the southern part of Texas. It is split between Texas and Mexico by the Rio Grande River. That you can literally just like swim across the river and you're in Mexico, which not sure like what that's like now, but this was when I was there years back. And um, what I loved about it was that you could be in the desert and in the same day drive up to the mountains and be in a completely different ecosystem with like pine trees and it's the clouds rolling in, so it's kind of just a little bit damp and colder. It was 10 to 15 degrees colder, and I just thought that was so cool that you had these in one park, you can experience two different climates.
Yeah.
And also because to get to the top of like the mountain area, which a lot of other trails there, beautiful, beautiful trails, because it's such a huge elevation change, they didn't allow RVs like a certain size. I think it was like
Mhm.
above 30 feet maybe weren't allowed to go up because there were a lot of switchbacks and you're driving like
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
up a
yeah.
mountain. Um, but also like Big Bend, I saw my first javelina, which is kind of
Really?
yeah, and
For listeners, if you don't know, they are basically wild boars in
yeah,
the desert. Yeah.
yeah. I saw a big one and it had a baby with him, so I saw a baby javelina.
My aunt
Um,
just posted a picture of a baby javelina in her yard. It's so
what?
tiny.
Where does your aunt
Yeah.
live?
Tucson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
not in
they're
Ohio.
so cute. No, I was like, what the heck? No, I just like I love that also like at night you could hear the coyotes in the distance, which is
Mhm.
one of my favorite sounds. Um and then so I hiked to this hot spring. They have a hot spring there that it actually overflows. It's like a natural infinity pool. It overflows into the
Oh,
Rio
that's
Grande.
cool.
And it's like surrounded by some stones. Hot spring, you can take this canyon hike, which I did to get to it, which is much longer than just taking the half-mile hike. Um, and it kind of can be busy because obviously people you could drive there and then walk half mile and you're there. I took the long route and then I didn't compensate for the time it takes to get back, so I ended up walking back to my campsite in the dark.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, not advising this to anybody because I was terrified. And two women who were completing a hike and driving on the road saw me, picked me up. I went with them and I
Oh,
felt
thank
safe.
goodness. Oh my
And they
gosh.
brought me back to my campsite because it was pitch black,
I
like
was
literally
clenching
pitch
just hearing
black.
you tell that story. I'm like, "Oh,
No,
no."
yeah,
That's awful.
it was not enjoyable. But so yeah, plan accordingly when you go to the hot springs. That's my best advice. But very cool. A
Yeah.
lot of people just like sit in the hot spring and then, like you have the river right next door. So yes, that is my long-winded explanation of why you should go to Big Bend immediately.
Also, yeah, I feel like so many people, myself included, not in Big Bend National Park, but you have to do a lot of like backwards math to figure out when you might be getting back to your car campsite. There's been so many
Yeah.
times where I'll go on the Ohio Erie Canal towpath trail. I went on my bike and I think like, oh, I'll be back in time. and it's dark and
Yeah.
there's no lights. I don't have a headlamp, and it's just not a good situation whenever you're trying to beat the sun back and you're
Yeah,
panicking. Um,
definitely.
cool. Speaking of Ohio, I'm going to talk about the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. This is just, I think I've taken it for granted for so many years. And finally, I've woken up and realized how beautiful this park is and that there's a giant national park right in my home
Mm.
state. Been to it countless times. Um, it has, forest, rivers, waterfalls, farmlands. It's just like a very diverse national park. And it even has a lot of wildlife and birding opportunities. So, one fun fact I'm going to share, which maybe a colleague of ours already shared, who knows? Um, it is it has a beaver marsh, and it's called that because it was literally created by beavers that moved along the remnants of the canals, and to this day, there's beaver marsh, and you can go view wildlife there. Um, but really, the main appeal to me of Cuyahoga Valley National Park are all of the glacial rocks and remnants of the glaciers moving from north to south in the United States, and you can see that a lot in Ohio and Michigan and some of these and even New York. Um, and seeing like grooves and caves and things that were a result of the glaciers. And there are some caves that you can see some carvings and like little like tiny little shimmy caves that are really cool. And there are biking trails all throughout the park. I mean, I think I took the longest one I've ever done was like a 40-mile bike ride starting in Cuyahoga National Park and went all the way down the towpath trail.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, it's just there's so much to do, and there's a lot of towns nearby. So it's not like it's in the middle of the desert. So if you wanted to hit a trail and then go get brunch in the same day, you really could. And
Wow.
which is really nice, and really, really accessible. So highly recommend Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Lots of events, even for the solar eclipse. Because we were in the path of totality. Oh my God, it was nuts. They were shutting down parking lots. They were like posting signs like,
Whoa.
look, we're going to ticket you. Please don't like overwhelm our parking lots, because there was a special event for junior rangers as well, to where they would give you a special stamp in your book for the totality. So it's like at
What?
3:15 p.m., April 20, whatever, April 8th. And then you also got a special solar eclipse junior ranger badge. If I,
Wow.
but but if you are a junior ranger, and they still might have badges. I know it's like a limited series. So if you're in Ohio near Cuyahoga Valley and you're a junior ranger, go check it out. You get a special badge, which is really,
That's so cool.
yeah.
Wow, I love that exclusivity. Yeah, Catherine did mention that she loves this park,
Hmm.
and the beaver tidbit really fascinated me. Shout out to all those hardworking beavers. Can you
Shout out
still
to
see
beavers.
them? Can you still see beavers when you go, or it's like they've retired?
I've ne- I've never seen one, but beavers are actually a really fascinating like keystone species. Like if they're in the area, they're doing work and they're making
Mm,
things happen. And I never realized just
yeah,
how important beavers were to the environment. So, yay
yeah.
beavers. I have seen river otters there though. I've seen river otters, which
Mm,
don't get close because apparently they can be vicious. FYI, keep your distance. Yeah, there's
wow.
so I know that there was a news story, I think maybe last summer, of someone, I don't think in Ohio, but they were doing a tube float, as you do in the summer down a river. And apparently they got too close to otters and not good things happened. So maintain your distance from wildlife,
Wow.
people. I mean, that's just a good rule to follow no matter what.
Yeah.
So
No, good thing you told me, because really social media
you,
shows different.
well, I also river otters are a little bit different. Look up a picture of one and you'll see why maybe you don't want to get too close.
Oh no.
No, well,
Okay.
it's fine. They're
My
cool.
dreams are
Just
dashed.
no, 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 no. You can see some otters, hold some hands, give them little clams, and then they'll crack it.
Um, okay, so the last one I want to talk about, because I did mention Joshua Tree already and I discussed it. And if there's anything to add, I highly recommend going to hike the Skull Rock Trail. Very cool at the end. There's a giant boulder that looks like a skull, which is really neat. So I recommend that. But my last park, my last favorite park of all times, is the White Sands National Park in New Mexico. And I love this park because It is so vastly different, I think, from other parks in the country. It's basically, this gypsum sand that is shimmering white all over the place. It's desert terrain, but you have these beautiful sand dunes of gypsum sand. That is really, it's very surreal when you're walking there, when you're seeing it in person, especially if you go during a sunset. Holy moly, the colors of the sky contrasted with the sand, it's just absolutely stunning. And you can just drive in. There are some scenic trails you can take. They also offer opportunities where you can rent a sled and you can sled down these
Yeah.
dunes. Yeah,
Is the
which is
is
very cool.
does gypsum sand hold heat like certain kinds of sand, or is it like you can walk on it and it's
When I went, the sand was very cold,
nice?
and yeah, it was not
Okay.
uncomfortable. It was really cool, and yeah, it was just really fun time. Like, if you enjoy taking photos, this is the place to go. They allow pets, which is also very cool.
I love that.
So yeah, and it's like set the scenery too. It's like the backdrop is the San Andres Mountains. So you have these like beautiful white sand dunes, and then like contrasted with the mountains in the back. It really was one of the most beautiful national parks I've ever been to. So
Yeah.
definitely would recommend that one.
Nice. Unfortunately haven't spent a lot of time in New Mexico aside from just driving through one way or the other. So I think that has to be on my list, is to like really take some time. I feel like
Mm.
Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, I just need to spend some time there.
It's so
Um,
funny because those are three of my favorite states in terms of, because I just love the desert. And I think you would love it too because we talk about the desert all
yeah.
the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do, and like we said earlier, maybe it's just because of being like growing up on the East Coast, but like it's such an otherworldly environment where I'm just like
Mm.
constantly amazed. Although
Yeah.
the first time Fen was my dog was ever in the desert, I was moving out to LA, driving over. I take him for a walk at a gas station in the desert, and immediately he steps onto a cactus and gets
Oh
something in his.
no.
I'm like, well, you did learn this
Yeah.
very quickly. Okay, so I'm not going to talk more about Sequoia. I think we already covered it enough. Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon National Park, both worth a visit. I will say that Kings Canyon was designated by UNESCO as part of the Sequoia Kings Canyon Biosphere Reserve. So they're kind of all one thing, which is really
Cool.
important. So if you're going to one or the other, book time to like just drive up the road to see the other. Um,
Hmm.
and then I guess the final one I'll talk about will be Yosemite National Park in California. And I
Mm.
do think I feel like Yosemite and Yellowstone and Grand Canyon all get like a lot of press, but it was my first time ever visiting this past year. And I was just so, so impressed with it. Um, it's just like this incredible wonderland in the middle of a valley, and was not expecting that. To like, if you're entering the park in Yosemite, you're like literally driving into the valley, you're on the valley floor, and then it kind of just like opens up and you see all of these beautiful like granite monoliths and waterfalls, and it is just it's such a lovely experience. And there are a couple entrances that you can drive into the park. There's like a tunnel road up at the top, to where if you're coming from, I guess it'd be the east, when you're coming in, like if you're coming from Sequoia to Yosemite, it's this beautiful opening up at the top of the tunnel, and you have the entire view of the park, and it is just stunning.
Mm.
And I will say that being able to look at like El Capitan and the Three Brothers and all of these like different rock, like granite rock faces, and just having them be so, so far up from where you are on the valley floor is just, it's one of those things. Same with Sequoia. It's just the scale of it by itself
Mm.
is just really shocking. Same with the Grand Canyon. Um, I think that there are a lot of reasons why these places became national parks, because the actual like majestic beauty of it is just, you can't believe it. Um,
Mm.
and for anyone, I went with, again, with my three young nephews to Yosemite. We had a lot of kid friendly trails. There's like a
Mm.
meadow in the middle of the valley floor that's really accessible. A lot of like little waterfall hikes that aren't too difficult. And also one of my absolute favorite moments was going up to Glacier Point Lookout, which isn't a
Mm.
hard hike. It's right by a parking lot and everything. But if you're afraid of heights, it is dicey. Oh my gosh. Like there's a little rock overhang, and there's like a metal railing that it says on it, built in like 1983, which I'm like, oh wow, so recent. This is
Mm-mm.
crazy. Um, but basically, you are at eye level with like the top of El Capitan, but then you see the valley floor, and I don't get vertigo, but whenever I look at even
Oof.
pictures of it, my hands are sweating. I can't do it. It was just it was an amazing view. Highly
Yeah.
recommend. It looks like you're looking at little tiny toy models, but
Mm.
whew, I don't see how
That's
people do the
cool.
Half Dome hike. I know it's on a lottery. I know it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's very challenging, but kudos to you, whoever does it.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Or like
No,
Morro
I
Rock. That one's also pretty nuts. I don't couldn't do it.
yeah, I really don't understand those either, like even the in Utah, what is the one in Bryce Canyon, Angels Landing?
Landing? Yeah.
Like I don't think I could do those. I don't know, I don't know. Yeah.
It's I no, I don't have the faith in myself to do it. I don't have the faith in other people to not like bump me off of something.
Oh my
Um
gosh. No.
whenever so yeah, to wrap up Yosemite, um gorgeous, worth a visit. Look at El Capitan and go, "Wow, it's huge," because it is.
Mm. Yeah.
But I will say, on that note about not doing dangerous hikes, so whenever I visited the Grand Canyon, I was once again an amazing place. We don't have to dive into it too much. Go see the Grand Canyon once in your life. But what really frustrated me with it was so heavy with tourists and people taking
Mm.
Instagram photos that I was just kind of like walking along some trails, and I saw people climbing over ropes, do not cross, to like get on
Mm-mm.
top of rocks and go like this. And I'm like,
Nope.
do people fall and die? So
No.
please be careful, respect yourself, and you're not invincible in these places.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of people doesn't mean that you shouldn't be respecting the boundaries that are set by the park rangers, by the park service, because
100%.
yikes. Yeah.
I think also in that same vein, this whole episode, we're talking about national parks. And the reason why these national parks are protected and so beautiful when we visit is because we have to follow the rules.
Mhm.
The rules are there for a reason. Whatever you bring, like just be mindful of littering. I remember my trip to Yosemite was not as wonderful the first time around. There were just so many tourists who were littering and throwing rocks
Yeah,
at ducks, and it
that's
just
awful.
frustrated the heck out of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, we're also talking about safety measures. Like, don't do it for the gram. It's not worth it to
Absolutely.
risk your safety, anyone else's safety. But also just like, let's keep these parks beautiful and keep them around for generations to come because they're really special places in this country that deserve to be protected, and we
Yeah.
all need to kind of do our part, especially when we're going to visit.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, take the rules very seriously. Don't go climbing over things. Don't be stealing stuff. And even something as
Yeah.
simple as there's like a foot scraping stations. Um,
Mm.
you can bring a lot of like seeds and bacteria and biomatter into a park that isn't, native. So that's why
Yeah.
they advise, like, yeah, clean your shoes. Don't be, bringing in things that you're just going to like toss down and leave, even if like it's an orange. It doesn't belong there. And, it could have effects. So just be mindful.
Yeah. Good point. All right, cool. So everybody enjoy National Park Week.
Yes.
Let us know if you could always call us, email us, let us know what you do if you decide to check anything out. Or if you have a favorite park that you want to shout out, let us know. We'll be back next week with a special episode of Are River Otters Dangerous? No, just kidding.
You know what? I'm gonna go out in the wild. I'll have my own camera. We'll see.